Tom, you have exclusively the latest military sexual scandal. Female cadets at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point photographed apparently unknowingly by a sergeant who was actually responsible for their well-being. Take us inside that story. How did you get it?
Well, that's exactly right, Marcus. It was brought to my attention by a number of current and former members of the West Point community who had heard about these allegations and were deeply concerned not only about what it meant to the trust and integrity of their alma mater, but what the Army and the Academy were doing to resolve the problem. So they brought this to me. I immediately contacted senior Army officials who had not planned to announce it, but I must say that once they were confronted with the information, they certainly cooperated in providing all the background information, the charges, and even providing comment from the four-star general, who's the #2 officer in the Army, the Vice Chief of Staff.
Tom, you know better than anybody how intense the pressure has been on the military about how it deals with or doesn't deal with allegations of sexual harassment and sexual assault. What are the stakes as it investigates these allegations out of West Point?
Well, the West Point case is really interesting because it calls into question, I think, in the minds of many people, whether the Army is really the right place for a young woman to try to commit her life. The Army is in the midst of downsizing, which means it wants to keep only the best men and women, and at the same time, Marcus, it's trying to integrate women into frontline combat positions for the first time in history. So the stakes are incredibly high, not just with the young women who may be concerned about their safety and the trust of the institution, but also with a group of people called influencers. Their mothers, their fathers, their coaches, their teachers, their religious leaders, who are very influential in the minds of young people deciding whether to choose a life of military service.
General Ray Odierno, the Army Chief of Staff, wrote to his Army personnel just last week, recent incidents of sexual assault and sexual harassment violate everything our Army stands for. They are contrary to our Army values and will not be tolerated. Now that's coming from the brass. We're hearing it from more and more brass. Do these feelings echo down the ranks?
Well, they certainly do. You know, it's interesting. The Army's talked about solving the problem with training, but I don't think that you can train a sergeant first class to know that it's wrong to secretly videotape cadets in the shower. I mean, that's just wrong, wrong, wrong. So it's not just about training. I think that all the armed services have to look at how they promote people, how they attract people, and the kind of people who are signing up. And I think that has to be more stringent review all through the career of a soldier or airman or sailor, because these things can't be resolved by training, Marcus. It has to be a cultural change within the entire armed services.
Tom, thanks so much for bringing us this important story.
Thank you, Marcus.